sirens, screaming one man's freedom's another's fever that keeps rising. Along with the sneak attack some, but I promise, honey, I can make the coffee strong enough to get us to the wine in a holding pattern. Remembering when we could land in any old weather, singing nothing so wrong that the right song can't make it better. But when will the aerosols fly through the stage lights towards the front row of my next audience of wonder in a holding pattern, circling around? Won't you hold me, darling, till the wheels touch down? Of alarms sounding like vespers, your lips to my ears, don't forget we're alone in this together. Glory to every true love, as it once was, as it is now, and just might have to be forever. In a holding pattern, circling around, hold me and I'll hold you, darling, till the wheels touch down. We're in a holding pattern. So hold me, darling, while the world burns down.
Hello, friends. My name is Mac Wilson from The Current, and I have a very special guest in The Current studio, Nickel Creek. Welcome.
Hello.
Sarah Watkins, Chris Thile, Sean Watkins, welcome back to St. Paul.
Thank you.
So good to be here.
Thank you.
So I have a question right off the bat. There's no right or wrong answer, but have you always identified it as creek or crick, or does it depend?
Always
Definitely
creek.
creek.
Okay.
Yeah.
Every time I hear someone say crick, I think to myself, I got to figure out where that comes from, because, you know, it's like
It definitely doesn't come from Southern California,
No, it doesn't come
which is
from
where
Southern
we are
California.
from.
That's true. Yeah, generally more creeks than cricks
Yeah.
in Southern California.
Yeah, generally the Midwest way, like I thought of the way that Bon Iver sings it. I went back and listened, he goes, creek. So I said, okay, that's the one I'm going to go with
Down
today.
along the creeks.
The creeks, yeah. So he's very, very clear in saying that. So welcome back to town. I've crossed paths with some of you in various capacities, whether I'm with her, with Sarah, or live from here with Chris. You've come in with Punch Brothers, longtime friends of The Current and Minnesota Public Radio, and we're happy to have Nickel Creek in today. And Nickel Creek back in action with the new album Celebrants. Is that the correct pronunciation?
Nailed it.
You're doing great with the pronunciation.
Yeah, it's really good.
So far,
It's one of those things where you work yourself up, and I'm sitting here, I'm like, is it Celebrants? No, it's Celebrants.
Celebrants.
So the genesis behind essentially reuniting the band and getting back together for the record, it all comes back to the COVID-19 pandemic, it seems, as always. So the story that I read that you were doing, as we all do these Zoom interviews, and once the Zoom interview ended, you hung on with each other. Can you walk through that chat that you had with each other a bit?
I don't even think it was Zoom. I think it was just on the phone.
Yeah, it's just on the phone.
It was just a
Conference call.
Little conference
Good
call.
old-fashioned conference call.
Old school.
We hadn't realized it, but it was the 20th anniversary of our first album. And NPR ended up writing a really, really sweet thing about it. And we did an interview for it. And afterwards, we just kind of hung out. We're like, hey, it was us being playful again, and we hadn't been on the phone, the three of us, for a long time. And that's kind of what started the conversation, I think.
Yeah,
We didn't-
probably because no one had to say, you need to unmute yourself. Just like the spirits were high. It's just like, this is going so well. Let's let it ride, make a record.
You hadn't become completely burned out by Zoom interviews yet at that point.
Well, no. I mean, we probably were, but since it was an actual conference call, it was just so good.
So easy.
So nice.
So easy, yeah.
That we were like, maybe making a record will be so nice and so easy as well. And it was so nice. It was not so easy, but it was so nice.
So a couple of weeks ago, the band Joseph came in, where they're three
love
siblings.
Joseph.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful conversation, wonderful band as always. And they were talking about the writing process, how each of them submitted different ideas, and they did collaborate on Zoom through the whole thing. And I asked them, did you put together the harmonies on Zoom? And they said, no, absolutely not. We actually did do that in person. So how did your writing process go, like pandemic-wise? Did you get together in person, or were you putting together these incredibly intricate instrumental parts on Zoom?
No, I mean, there was no Zoom as a part of this whole process. We were able to, because of the pandemic, we were able to be together. Our schedules were obliterated, and
We tested and quarantined and did the
we
whole nine.
we lived at a friend's house for the first 2 weeks, and then just in the LA area for another 2, and laid the foundation, built the foundation of what we collectively in that time decided this record, what we wanted from this record. Certain goals that we had in terms of flow and arc, and returning themes, and some sonic aspirations that we had, and also in that time period we were able to talk to Eric Valentine, ask him to come back from retirement and produce the record with us, for us, as well as Mike Elizondo, who plays bass on the record, and also he's got his fingerprints on a lot of these songs.
Yeah.
Very cool. Sorry,
Yeah.
Sean, were you going to say?
Did I interrupt you?
No, I had a thought, and so I took a breath, but then I forgot my thought when you.
Yeah.
Well, I think I was going to say that we spent, it was the first time we'd ever spent that much time writing by far. We spent a solid month together, and we only took Sundays off, I think. Maybe
Something like that.
And we would work from like 10 to 5 or something, pretty, solid schedule. And that's just something we've never had time to do before. And
So got to lay the foundations for
Yeah.
all the songs together, as opposed to people coming in with like a pretty well-formed thing going, is this a Nickel Creek song? Instead, it was we were able to make the Nickel Creek songs all together really for the first time.
We sort of like poured the foundations for all of them, and then they kind of came up separately.
All the songs,
Yeah,
yeah.
all the songs. Versus like finishing one song, moving on to the next. And
And
so
we would do individual work on things for a while, and then come back together and do more.
Yeah.
So it was as they both said, it's by far the most time that we've ever spent making a record.
And because we did that, because we started, at the base level, I keep making this like house reference, but because we started, with like a foundation, we were able to be more nimble and incorporate elements from songs into other songs, which was really fun. And that's something you can't do if you arrive with a fully formed song. But if it's barely there, a baby song, then you can play with it,
Or you'd have to like graft it on in a
You'd
way
have to
that
graft it on.
wouldn't feel natural.
Right.
There's a little magic shit can happen when you're composing a large body of material together. Then you just seed little things throughout. You pick themes that seem important, both musical and lyrical, and flesh them out, recontextualize them as they go, so that they develop more, like kind of more facet, there's just more nuanced meaning over the course of the record's about an hour.
So from what I'm hearing, like going back 20 years to the beginning of the band, this is almost like harkening back to like a CD that you would go out and buy, and it's almost meant to be listened to in one piece,
100%.
rather than on shuffle on Spotify or other streaming platforms.
Yeah.
This is a cohesive body of work that all these songs are speaking to each other. This is the impression I get.
Yeah,
100%. And we know that a lot of people will, on purpose or on accident, listen to the album in shuffle, which is the nature of streaming.
Which is fine.
But we made the effort. We decided that regardless, we wanted it to be its best self or be its fullest vision of itself with the sequence and with these lovely little connective tones and chords and notes that really set up the next song. And so if you listen on shuffle, might sound like a certain given song starts very abruptly because it's completely connected to the previous song. But we just decided it was worth it to have this kind of this greater vision.
How often the streaming services just sort of accidentally kick into shuffle mode. And they're just in
I find it's hard to get it to not be shuffle.
Yeah.
It's also that's a way that it could have affected our songwriting a lot. Like Spotify could have affected our songwriting had we chosen to just appease the assumption that it's going to be in shuffle or individual songs, you know. And I think that it affects a lot of music in not positive ways, but I'm sure some positive ways too.
It's funny, we're talking about Spotify and Zoom. Let's go back a couple of decades now. Now, you've been together as a band for a very long time, back to when you were very, very young. And Sean, you made the remark a few moments ago about how you had more time to work on this record than other ones. If you were going back 20 years, when you were relatively fresh, did it feel like you were being rushed, or did you have like other people like giving you a lot of the input, so to speak, on what they needed Nickel Creek to sound like 20 years ago?
I think you're just in a hurry when you're young. You just want things to, you just need everything to happen all at once. And you don't have as much patience for the process, or you just can't wait for the thing to be a song. And so you get it there as fast as you can, and you can't wait for the thing to be a record. So I think it's natural for that, for it to go quicker when you're younger. Your creative metabolism is faster.
Also, we weren't really writing together that, especially for the first couple albums. We were just bringing the songs. It was like, do you like it or don't you like it? And it would be a simple yes or no. And until one day a producer we were going to work with but didn't told us, he said, you guys should write together. And we thought, oh, okay, yeah, that's cool, but how does that work? And he was like, because we were thinking at the time was like, what if I like his verse but I don't like the chorus? Then are we going to break up as a band? And this producer was like, you can like little elements of someone's song and not like the rest of it, and it's okay. And we were like, mind's blown, So that started us writing together. And my point is that like when you're writing separately, it's easier to just, it's like, do you like the song or not? Let's do it or not do it, And this was, we really had to work hard together. And, we all believe that like if one person isn't 100% happy, then we'll keep working at it and find a better way. And that, you end up with something that you really like, but it takes a lot of time.
Mm. You're all longtime friends and siblings and collaborators with...
Sean and I are very long-time siblings.
Very long-time siblings. So the point that I'm trying to make is that you all get along well. You work with each other on different records. But like I'm thinking about the different projects that you've been involved in. The example I came up with is like Sean, for instance. When you're at home in the evening, are you like, I'm going to dial up Punch Brothers tonight? Is that something that you dive into? Or
Sean,
Chris, do you listen to I'm With Her on a regular basis?
I think, we definitely listen to, I check out all my friends' stuff when they put it out. I'm excited to. Give them a few spins on the old streaming. But we're excited about each other's work, and it's fun to see each other work in different scenarios, and see how the their music they make evolves, with other people.
Hmm. And speaking of I'm With Her, Sarah, you've got Eva O'Donovan on the road with you, which is really exciting as always. How has been the experience of welcoming her back into the fold of
we all
what
just
you do?
immediately just went to her dressing room and hung out for like 12 minutes and ate all of her snacks and caught up. That's been the hang so far.
Why is it that everyone else's writer is so delicious?
I know. Her hummus is way better than our hummus.
Yeah, what's going on? Also, her LaCroix just has like this extra
extra fizz too, right?
It's like
It's a joy to be able to tour with our friends. We had Gabby Moreno out on this tour as well, and Monica Martin was just out with us. It's so fun to get to hang out with our friends and to hear them at night. I hear them every evening, when they're
also like genuinely huge fans of all these people.
Yeah.
we're very hands-on in the opening act curation department. It's just like when it's an evening, you're presenting an evening to the people who, you're fortunate enough to have attracted into the theater. You want to take care of them. You want to make sure it's an evening of music that you really, really believe in. And so when it's someone like Aoife or Monica or Hocktail or Gabby, I'm always tempted not to be practicing, but rather to be on the side of the stage checking it out. So that's a problem.
Yeah.
But I figured it out. I listen to one or two and then I go practice.
And then the next night you peek in the middle of the set.
Yeah, in the middle. And then, you catch the whole set over the course of an opening act run.
We are in the current studio with Nickel Creek. Sara, Chris, Sean, thank you again for stopping by today. Thank you for playing some songs. And I'm glad that all of your schedules were able to align and we were able to make this happen today. I'm sure you're just as glad.
Oh,
yes,
it's so
thanks
good.
for having us.
Well, and keep doing the good, keep fighting the good fight here. The Current is just no brown nosing. I promise I'm not brown nosing, but the Current is a very special place. You guys are rocking it. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks again for coming in.
Thank you.
The Current is public media made possible thanks to member support.